Per Joe Cowley, Nikola Vucevic has no trade market. How can that be? We'll talk about that and more in today's episode of Locked On Bulls. Let's go.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions do apply. So, Joe Cowley gave his grades on the Chicago Bulls and dropped an interesting nugget in the article, right? He was going through and grading the Chicago Bulls offseason moves, actually a little more favorable than I would have thought for Joe Cowley. I'm not going to lie to you. So I was actually kind of impressed by that. But a big part of this article is where he says the growing concerns, however, are that possible destinations for LaVine seemingly have dried up and that there is still no market for Nikola Vucevic at age 33 and 41 plus million guaranteed over the next 2 seasons. And just that part right there, right? Where you're I don't know if that was something that a lot of people thought around the Chicago Bulls organization or even around Bulls fan base right now, that Nikola Vucevic would be the one with no market. In my mind, at least how I was thinking of it, I thought that the Bulls just really weren't pursuing a Vuce trade as heavily as maybe we'd seen them pursue some of the other trades that were on the board here. I mean, realistically speaking, right, who wouldn't want a player like that? And I don't know if it's something to worry about, but the fact that you hear that there's not a market for him now at all, and the inclusion of the money in that, right, like 41 million guaranteed. I mean, you're talking about over 2 seasons. This is not the end of the world. It's not a killer contract for a guy like Nikola Vucevic, but hearing that there's no market, to me, right, you have to assume that the Bulls have been trying to move Vuce, that the Bulls have been pushing to try and get him out of here just as hard as they're trying to push Zach LaVine, because nobody seems to be a taker. And is that something that this team should be worried about moving forward? Does it seem like there's been a duo, I guess, now that is left here of bad contracts that have hamstrung this team for the foreseeable future? Because if there's no market, is there going to be a market the more we get into the season? And that's what I think is very, very interesting about this. And I'll say this about it, right? And hit that like button, subscribe to the page. If you're listening on the podcast side, man, leave that 5-star review if you have not done so. Here's my thing on this. And what I think is a very different situation with both of these guys, right? In the Zach LaVine situation, I think people just know who Zach is. And I think with Vuce, people know who Vuce is, but I think it's a very different no, right? With the Zach LaVine situation, I think people, right, at the end of the day, teams around the league are looking at LaVine as more of a question mark. They're looking at LaVine as more of a health question. They're looking at LaVine as more of a, is he going to be a winning player question? And yes, I know that there's, articles that have been written about, oh, well, this is why he's a losing player. I understand all of that. But when we see players win, yes, situation does matter. But usually you can still tell, oh, this guy's a phenomenal player and he makes the guys around him better. He's getting the best out of these guys, and it's still not good enough. How many situations have we seen that happen in? And we just haven't seen that with Zach LaVine. So I think that there's a ton of questions around Zach LaVine that make his situation different, because the questions that are on Vuce, I think, are more answers. I think it's just limitations to Vuce that maybe have his market a little bit lower. To me, when I look at a player like Nikola Vucevic, you're talking about a guy who, for the most part, over the rest of his career, I'm going to know what he's going to be. Maybe the numbers diminish season over season, but even that, at $20 million a year, you're not losing your mind over that, right? But 18 and 11. That's what he's going to be, 18 and 11. He's going to be a phenomenal three-point shooter? No. Is he going to be phenomenal on the boards? Yes. Is he going to be terrible in pick-and-roll defense? Yes. Is he going to be a solid one-on-one defender? Yes. Is he going to be able to dominate the offensive boards? Yes. Is he going to be able to dominate the defensive boards? Yes. Is he going to be consistent? Yes. Is he going to be healthy? Yes. So I think the situation with Vuce, to me, is just more of there's not a need for that guy yet. And that's why I said, right? I said this last week on a couple of episodes that, to me, the market for Vooch is a midseason market. To me, Vooch having no market right now is not the end of the world, because it's a mid-season conversation for me. Because how many times do we get to the middle of the season and the Lakers come? I mean, any NBA team comes calling because they've got undersized bigs. They need more rebounding. They need more size down low. They need somebody who can be consistent in the post. They need a consistent score. How many times do we see that happen in the league? Listen, I'll give you the answer. It's every single year. We see the style of player that Vooch is needed every single year by some team that's sitting there trying to make a run. Now, am I telling you that that's bringing you back 10 first-round picks? No. Am I telling you that that's bringing you back this massive haul? No, but that's not the conversation that we're having here. The conversation we're having right now is what kind of market can Nikola Vucevic get? And right now, listen, you don't want to start your season with a guy like Vooch. He's a guy who has helped this Bulls team slow down their pace dramatically. They were 28th in pace of play last season. He's gotten slower over his time in the NBA, which is fine. He's an aging player. That's what happens, right? And so at 33 years old, teams are going to be a lot less likely to sit there and go, you know what we want? The slow guy who can't shoot threes, who's going to be trailing the offense most of the time, who's dominant in the paint, who's going to be a really solid mid-range shooter. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not worried about Nikola Vucevic having no market right now, because it doesn't make sense to start your team off with a player like Nikola Vucevic. But as you get into the season, as guys go down, as guys get hurt, right? We know that this happens every single season. I think that you'll see Vooch's value start to go the other direction a lot more. And that's the thing for me that has me a lot less worried about the Nikola Vucevic potential of being moved than I am. I should say, because it's not a was, than I am about Zach LaVine possibly being moved here. Like, I think that, to me, these are apples to oranges. These are not the same situation in the slightest. And Bulls fans shouldn't be panicked by the fact that Nikola Vucevic has no market right now. If you're panicked that the Bulls have no market right now, I mean, like, that to me is it's a non-starter, right? It's a non-factor for me, because when I'm looking at Nikola Vucevic, I see a guy who teams are going to look at and say, oh, guess what? He's going to be a contributor down the stretch. So we'll see what it ends up being, man. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments below. Coming up next, got to talk about Matas Buzelis' summer league debut. This young man was balling, but he was not happy. We'll talk about that coming up next. But first, we got to tell you guys all about Game Time. Listen, Game Time is the #1 place for you to go get all your ticketing needs. I mean, when you get things like priority last minute deals, flash deals, zone deals, all in pricing. Well, Pat, what does all of that mean? Well, listen, you get a flash deal. You can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. All in pricing, toggle that feature on, and now all of a sudden you're talking about being able to actually see the price of the actual ticket. How many times have you been 95% through going out and buying some tickets, and then you get to that last page, and all of a sudden you're sitting there going, wait a minute, what the heck? How'd this get up to $200? I was at 160. What happened? Yeah, that's when you're not getting that all in pricing. You're not getting that here with Game Time. They're giving you the price right up front. You're still getting the lowest prices guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And my favorite feature, especially if you're going to WNBA games where Caitlin Clark is playing, the seat view. Get that panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. There's so many different ways for you to get your tickets over on Game Time. So go to Game Time or go download the Game Time app right now, create an account and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, download the Game Time app, create an account and use Locked On NBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Terms and conditions do apply. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Let's talk about the Bulls here in Summer League. Bulls took on the Bucks in Summer League for their first game of the season. And you know what? Not a bad debut. Bulls come away, of course, with the win at the end of the day, 96-89 yesterday. And we saw some good things out of the young guy, Matas Buzelis. Now, did not shoot the ball well at all, but found his way to make an impact. And I think that's where I wanted to see this start. This was a perfect way to me to see Matas's I gotta get Matas. I keep saying Matas to get to see Matas's career begin. And why, Pat? Why are you saying that? What are you talking about? How many times have we talked about with players who are here, Patrick Williams, really a P. Will type of player, I guess. How many times have we talked about find a way to be impactful? Find a way to make something work for you. The shot wasn't working yesterday. He goes 4 for 15, shot 26% from the field. He was 0 for 4 from the three-point line. I'll tell you this, he takes it with confidence, but it was not falling. 0 for 4 from the three-point line. Still coming away with 15 points. Still found himself consistently around the boards. Had 7 rebounds yesterday. Still found himself consistently around the rim, coming away with 2 blocks yesterday and getting to the free throw line. Listen, sometimes the shot isn't going to fall. That doesn't mean that you take yourself out of the game. And that to me was the biggest thing about seeing Matas' debut yesterday. When I watch him, right, he played 30 minutes just about yesterday. And when you watch how he moves, when you watch how he is off ball, he never stops moving. He's got an amazing motor. And he's very, the thing for me is, right, he's still trying to play within the confines of the offense, but he's trying to find his ability to make an impact. And I'll tell you this, that was what I was impressed with Julian Phillips in Summer League last year. It was what I was impressed with when we got into the season. Now, Julian Phillips didn't get nearly as much playing time. When he started getting some more minutes in the season, right, that's kind of when you saw that take an impact. But to me, when you see a player who he's just got a motor, doesn't stop moving, keeps trying to get to the boards, keep trying to get to the ball, keeps trying to fight through. Yes, there may be a bad shooting day, and that's how this started. This started off as a horrible shooting day for Matas Buzelis. But it was not that he didn't make an impact. He was one of the top 4 scorers on your team yesterday. Javonte Smart, Adama Sanago, DJ Stewart, Julian Phillips, all scoring 17. You know what I mean? Like, Matas had 15, and he made an impact defensively, made an impact on the boards. That's what you want to see. And here's the thing. Took it very different than what you might expect, right? He was very self-aware of it. You come on away, first preseason game, or first summer league game, I should say. You would think that, 15 points. Okay, I think I did some good things good, but I have a lot of things that did better. No, he was not sugarcoating it in his slightest. He felt like he did not play well. He felt like he struggled mightily. And the numbers would say that. But he didn't go out there and just talk about the things that he did well. He was focusing on, here's why I messed up. Here's why I got to get better. Yes, I got to the free throw line, which is the big thing, right? He got to the free throw line 11 times yesterday, was able to knock down 7 of 11 from there. Good percentage on the free throw percentage. I can deal with that. Like, those are the things that you have to, but he's more focused on getting better. He's more focused on the fact that that's not the kind of showing that I want to have. We heard from Casey Johnson yesterday talking about Matas. He said, honestly, I was pretty sloppy today. I can play a lot better. That's what you want to see, but still seeing that impact. That's how you get better. Yes, you had a solid start. I'm not going to lie to you. When you look at the number, I understand shooting wise and not great, but when you look at the numbers, 15, 7, 2 assists, 2 blocks. Had 1 turnover, right? He was a -2 on the plus minus, but he didn't shoot the ball well. So that's going to happen. Didn't stop shooting, didn't lose his confidence, didn't go out there and just start standing in the corner, didn't pout. He kept himself engaged in the game. That is more valuable to me right now than seeing somebody go 25 for 26. No, actually, listen, if somebody went 25 for 26, as a player, get him off the summer league team. But it's more valuable to me because shots are going to fall. Shots are going to go in for you. Yes, you had some struggles. Yes, you didn't play your best here, but that's not going to be every single game. And if you can give me a 15-7 and 2 block game in a game where, to me, right, yes, you played well by keeping yourself engaged, but on the court, right, I thought that the shot just it never looked like it was going in to me. It never looked like it was a pure shot. And again, my biggest concern with him is the 3 ball. He was 0 for 4 from the 3-point line. But around the rim had some struggles. Mid-range game had some struggles. That was with him first game ever in a Bulls jersey, having some struggles. And like that can kill your confidence quickly. It didn't. He said, I'm going out. I'm going after it. I'm putting it all on the line. If I go 4 for 15 now, I go 4 for 15 now, because what I don't want to do is get into the season, get my opportunity, and then I go 4 for 15. That's what I want to see. This is a time for learn. I could care less about summer league championships. I don't care about what Denzel Valentine did. I don't care about that Tony Snell. I could care less about a summer league championship. In fact, for my sake, I like to avoid the summer league championship because they're usually stupid. We don't need to see that much summer league basketball. But I do think that this is a valuable learning experience and development for these young players. And I think you see that in year 2 of Julian Phillips, who looks like he may be a nice little sleeper pick. We're going to talk about that coming up next here, talking about the rest of the young Bulls, the rest of this team, and why they can make an impact this season and why some of these guys may end up making the actual roster, right? We got a couple of guys here on 2-way deals as well, but why we may see them make the actual roster because of, yes, a showing at Summer League, because you just can't teach consistency. We'll talk about that coming up next. Appreciate you guys tuning in to another edition of Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. If you haven't done so, I need you guys to go ahead and hit that like button for me. I need you guys to subscribe to the page. And if you're on the podcast side, man, leave that 5-star review. And you know what the best thing that you can do? Share the content, man. If you guys see a episode of Locked On that you really rock with, share that mug into the Reddits, share that mug into the Discords, share the podcast everywhere that you can, because that's really how we get our podcast out there, word of mouth from you all. And you all are some of the best fans in the world. I mean, the support that you've given me and Hayes through the offseason has been absolutely phenomenal, because guess what? This has not been a team that there's been a ton to talk about, a ton that we're excited about. And the fact that you guys have stuck with us, man, it really does mean a lot to us. I mean, if we're being real, like, we signed this guy. You know what I mean? We signed Billy Bass. We signed Bubble Bass. Wasn't that his name? Wasn't that his name on SpongeBob? That's what he looked like with the glasses. The old boy that had the pickles under the sun. No pickles. Yeah, I mean, that's who we signed. You know what I mean? So the fact that y'all have been supporting us through that, we appreciate you guys for showing love, man. Listen, we talked about Matas Buzelis. Let's talk about some of the other guys on this summer league team that showed out. And you got to start it off with Julian Phillips. He was our 2nd-round pick last season. Didn't get a ton of time in the NBA. I mean, he had some games where he started to get himself going, started getting some consistent minutes. You started seeing him be out there with Billy Donovan. Billy started to trust him a little bit defensively. He was able to turn some defense into offense, but you never saw that game where you were like, boom, here this guy goes. He's in the league, because started to deal with some injury later on in that season. And then we kind of just saw him get shut down. But yesterday, very, very confident game from Julian Phillips. He ended up going 5 for 11, shot 45% from the field, 1 for 3 from the 3-point line. He got to the free throw line a ton as well. Ton of stuff driving to the bucket. He got himself involved offensively in the rebounding game, which I absolutely love from Julian Phillips. Like, he is, when I think about what I saw from Matas Buzelis yesterday, that's what I'm saw from Julian Phillips in his first summer league game. That's what we saw from him as we got into the season. That's why I'm excited about a guy like Matas Buzelis, because when I look at Julian Phillips' game, Like it's an endless motor. How can I get myself involved? A lot of the things that I just said. He ends up getting a double-double yesterday, 17 and 10. Did have a lot of turnovers. Got to clean up the turnovers. Had Oh, I'm sorry. I said that the wrong way. I was looking at the wrong stat there. Did have 2 turnovers. He didn't have a ton of turnovers. He had they had the 5 and the 2 real close there. But did have 2 turnovers on that. Got a steal. Turn that into a bucket the other way. Like those are the things that you want to see from Julian Phillips. Just consistency, the ability to get out on the break. A guy who, if he can find his shot, and I believe, see, to me, Julian Phillips is the opposite of Matas Buzelis, right? Where Julian Phillips, like everybody sits there and looks at his college shot and is like, oh my God, this guy can't shoot in the slightest. And then, but for most of his career, for most of his life, he's been a shooter. He's been somebody that could shoot. He could knock down the shot consistently. But when he got to college, they tried to change his shot. They wanted to tweak with him. This will never work at this level. His shot went away. It didn't work out for him, right? Now coming back, gets back with Peter Patton. Peter Patton says, why don't you shoot like you shot your life? Why don't you shoot how you got to college? Now, all of a sudden, we see that. We see more confidence in Julian Phillips. And I think the thing for me is, right, being able to see the wingspan and how he's able to utilize it on defense, the way that how smart he is defensively. He's one of those guys that it's almost instinctual, where he knows where to be. His body just moves when his mind, and he lets his mind catch up. I love that about him. Led the way in scoring, like I said, with those 17 points. He was tied with one other Chicago Bull on that list as well, a major Chicago Bull that I think might get some great minutes this season if we do get the eventual what we talked about in that first segment, a Vooch trade midway through the season. Because here's the thing, Adama Sanago, y'all know how confident I am in him. He's just a player that knows his game. Adama Sanago yesterday, 6 for 10 from the field, 12 rebounds, 17 points. He also gets a double-double. 5 for 6 from the free throw line. Like, give this guy a shot. It's only going to take one. You give him a shot. Give him consistent minutes at the NBA level. And I know, right, and this is perfect, right, because of the Vooch, where the Vooch market is, according to Joe Cowley right now. You're going to have to go into the season with Vooch. You're going into the season with Zach. So you're going to have to try and move these guys during the season. If you move Vooch, you can bring Adama up still on that 2-way contract that he has re-agreed to. He doesn't have to become a full-time player here with the Chicago Bulls just yet. You can keep him on that full-time contract because he'll probably play less than 60 games here. Now, you do have to sign him if you were to make the playoffs or the play-in tournament. You would have to sign him to that before you got to that point, because he's got to be a part of the active playoff roster and the active, roster that the team has heading into the playoffs. But we're not there yet. At this point, it's all about the development. It's all about building this guy up. And if he plays well, you want to be able to go out there and give him that contract. And I'm going to tell you this, guys. He's going to play well. He's consistent. And that's the biggest thing about Adama. These numbers, the only difference in the numbers that we saw yesterday than what we saw in the G League last year, in Summer League last year, in his little bit of time in the NBA, the only difference is he's playing against guys who mostly won't be in the league. Sorry about that. He's playing against guys who mostly won't be in the league. And so for this, he's probably taking it a little bit easier early on. If you allow him to get a spot on a team and get consistent minutes, he's going to ball. And now, does that mean he's going to be 25 and 10 in the NBA? No, I'm not sitting here telling you guys that. But what I'm telling you is, he's somebody who, it reminds me, and I've said this a couple of times, very much like Taj Gibson, not in play style, but in confidence in their game and in knowing who they are. Taj Gibson came in with the Chicago Bulls, and guess what? He was just like, what y'all need me to do? Y'all need me to rebound? Y'all need me to dunk on this dude? Y'all need me to get on the other end and block some shots? Bet. I've been doing that for 5 years in a row already. Like, let's do it. That's Adama Sanago to me. And I just have, I am confident in consistency. It doesn't mean that I think that there's going to be a star here. It doesn't mean, but you need people who are consistent on your team right now. You don't have that. You have nobody on your team who you look at as a consistent piece. And yes, I love Kobe White. Kobe White, to this point, has not proved consistency to me yet. Started off the season great, had some issues with injury that he dealt with, got that back healthy, kind of fell off. Patrick Williams. I mean, he's consistently not going to shoot that thing. Who's the consistent player on the team? I guess Vooch, but that's the guy you're talking about trading. The Bulls could do with having some glue pieces that are just consistent. To me, if you can get that in Adama Sinago, I think he could be a major piece for this team moving forward. And he's somebody that I would love to see the Chicago Bulls get more involved this season. But I do want to know how you guys feel, man. Let me know in the comments below. I'll be down there talking with you guys as well. What are your thoughts on the young Bulls in Summer League? What are your thoughts on Matas Buzelis' Summer League debut? And do you feel like the market for Vooch will remain dead? I'll be down in the comments talking with you guys as well. As always, man, it's your boy Pat the Designer back at it again to continue watching our Chicago Bulls content. Click the links on the screen or check the links in the description below. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. See Red Nation. Stand up. Peace.